Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode on Surviving and Thriving. I'm so excited to come back with another episode. As I always say, I'm Landy Landis, and I like to talk about chronic pain, mental health, and just a variety of different things to help the audience. So I have Faith here with me today, and I'm so excited. So I'm going to let her introduce herself and kind of share a little bit more about her, and then we'll go over some questions.
So, hi, Landy. I just want to say thank you for having me on your podcast. And my name is Faith Sterling. I live on Long Island, and Landy and I met through a program called Road to Remission.
Now, before we start into the formal questions, I wanted to ask you, do you like where you live and do you enjoy it? I always like to kind of ask some personal questions as well.
Sure. I do like where I live. So it's a half hour from New York City, and I grew up on the eastern Long Island, so I still have family there, and I get an opportunity to visit with them. The only thing that I don't like is the traffic.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I live in the middle of nowhere. So when I was 16 and I went to visit New York City for my cousin's birthday, I was so excited and I was like in awe of all the lights and everything, but I was so overwhelmed and I remember waiting for the subway my first time ever and my aunt's like you have to be fast. Like you got to get on there and I froze. And I was like the door was shutting and my aunt had to grab me and pull me in and I was like my first ever New York experience and I was like, "Oh my gosh." And I was so overwhelmed, but it was so cool to be there. Like it was such a different atmosphere, but the traffic definitely was something I had to get used to I think we stayed for like a week. But yeah, it was neat. We went to Times Square, we went to the Wax Museum. Even though that was a while ago, it's such a good memory. So, do you have any pets or any hobbies, things that you like to do?
So, no pets. I've had pets in the past. I am a big yogi, so I practice yoga probably almost every day. I like to go walking and hiking, and I have two children, and soon to be a grandma. So,
Oh, congratulations. This is your first grandchild?
yeah,
Oh, that's exciting.
yes, it's very exciting.
Well, that's really nice. I'm really glad you shared some things about you. Now, my first question for as far as the topic today, what conditions have you been diagnosed with and what does that kind of look like with your medical history? Like what are some things that you've gone through as far as medicines and doctors and that whole thing?
So, in September, the beginning of this past September, after really probably 2 years of having pain while urinating, a
Mhm.
deep burning sensation, very painful, and then having these UTI symptoms, which were full on UTI symptoms, the burning, the frequency and urgency, and blood in the urine, and all of that. Um, I was diagnosed with IC. I had been, first, I want to say that I had been back and forth to my normal gynecologist many times over the course of these 2 years. And I was on a vaginal estrogen cream twice a week. That was really burning me as well. So he was kind of throwing his hands up, saying he didn't really know what was going on, and he recommended that I see a urologist. And so I did see a urologist last March. So that would be a year ago now, March of 2025. And I was of course out of symptoms then. But things only got worse after that, progressively worse. And there were several instances of what appeared to be UTIs during that time. And then I had a cystoscopy, I think in maybe July of last year, which showed a perfectly normal bladder, urethra, everything. Um, but I continue to have these, I'll call them phantom UTIs because there was no bacteria showing up in the culture. Um, and in September, she gave me the diagnosis of IC on a telehealth visit.
Mm,
And as part of that telehealth visit, she gave me a PDF with all of the procedures that she could do in her office, along with the IC diet. And so it was really a shock to me because IC is really and it's it's a condition that we don't know a lot about, other than it's known as a chronic pain condition. So it really kind of floored me. At that point, my life was getting smaller and smaller and smaller because I was in pain all the time. I couldn't wear jeans. I
mhm,
was sitting on a pillow. Um, I was trying to figure out, what to do to get comfortable. There was nothing that would make me comfortable. The pain was pretty much persistent all day. And when I would go to urinate, I had a lot of tension and guarding in my
mhm.
pelvic floor, because it was just super painful. So after uh, spending a month kind of doom scrolling, yeah, it's really, and just like really crying for a month because I wasn't feeling good and I didn't see another way out. I went, the urogynecologist suggested that I start with, had suggested bladder distensions.
Mhm.
And I did one of them that was crazy painful. And the physician's assistant said I had a lot of pelvic tightness, and she suggested that I just use more vaginal estrogen cream, but that wasn't removing all these symptoms. I had signed up for 5 more bladder distensions. That I was going to do them one a week and then move to doing one every month. And that was when I found Callie.
I think it's great that you found Cali and you were able to find a program that could really help you and give you the answers, honestly, that you needed and kind of the reassurance. And I appreciate you sharing your story. And I'm sorry to hear all the hard stuff that you've been through because IC is so debilitating and can really take your life away. Like you mentioned, like you just spend all day in pain. And I don't think people realize how hard it is when you're going through this pain that the doctors really can't help you with, and then they're giving you these treatments that may help with some things or just part of it or not at all. And like you said, the treatments can be very intensive and very hard to deal with. And then the doctors, they try to help, but they don't always have the right things to help us or the right things to say necessarily because I also had like I had the bladder installations and it's the catheter thing they use to put the medicine in there and that's painful. And I don't think people, like I mentioned, if they've never been through something like this, it's hard to understand. But my next question for you is how has the program helped you and what does your life look like now?
So, so at the moment when I joined the program, my nervous system was so dysregulated. I was so anxious about just everything. I couldn't really get um, myself calmed down. When I look back now, um, I was breathing from the top of my chest all the time, and that's clearly an indication you're in fight or flight. But I had no clue about any of that. And So the the real turning point for me came when I started to get my nervous system back in regulation, and it took time to do that, and it took figuring things out, but really sticking with the program that was being released, because Callie's program also understands that we as women in this program, people in this program, um, want to be perfect. We want to do everything that we're supposed to be doing. We want to study. We want to learn. We want to, of course, get better. Um, and that all that thinking had to kind of calm down and settle. So one of the first things that happened to me, because from this guarding and the pelvic floor tightness, I'm speaking to you in a language that I didn't have then. I had tremendous frequency and urgency. I would go to the bathroom before leaving the house, get someplace, go to the bathroom, go to a yoga class before leaving the house, go to the bathroom, before entering the yoga studio, go to the bathroom, go to the, it was constant. I'd walk into a store, and the first thing that I'd have to find is, oh, where's the bathroom? Um, so the first thing that started to calm down, I started to realize that was, for me, it was part of my nervous system dysregulation. I was so on edge all the time that it was creating this urgency. Um, so that was the first thing that started to lighten up a little bit. And it was kind of weird because I've been in that state for years, not realizing it for a long, long time. And so that was really interesting to be able to go for, you know, on a car ride for an hour and not have the need to go to the bathroom. And that just got better and better over time. Um, And then the nervous system work, once I really calmed down, a lot of other things started to open up to me. There's a lot of information that I learned in the nervous system work, but just the mental calming down, I started to listen to other podcasts and listen to other doctors. And I started to see that, you know, Callie actually said, your bladder is healthy. You had that test done. Um, so I started to, and I still had the burning pain at the urethra all the time. I went into physical therapy, pelvic floor physical therapy as well. And I continued to still have that pain. So I kept messaging my urogynecologist, and she kind of, I won't say she threw her hands up, but she said, oh, you need to see this other doctor, which was a vulvodynia specialist. And um, so I got there only because I got my nervous system in a place where I was receptive to start to look at other things. Um, so the vulvodynia specialist said, there's so much more information for hormones out there. I'm 68, and there was a flawed study done on hormones in 2003 that women of my age relied upon for hormone therapy, and it said that hormones are bad. So if you went on hormones, most women, whoever went on them through menopause, and I did, you were taken off of them as quickly as possible.
Mm.
So, but estrogen leaves your body, when you don't have it being supplemented, as does progesterone and other hormones. So, um, this, and the other thing I want to mention is that the vaginal estrogen cream is not systemic. There's scientific evidence to this, that it treats only the tissue where
Mhm.
you put it. So the vulvodynia specialist recommended the course of treatment was to use the estrogen cream every day or twice a day if I needed it. And that, along with the nervous system reprocessing work, helped to calm the estrogen cream helped to build healthier tissue in that um, vulvar vestibule area and around the urethra. And the nervous system work helped me be with the discomfort without having it escalate.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, so, I mean, I could go on, Landy, unless you have another question, I could just keep going.
I think that's a lot of good information. I love that you also mentioned that you didn't really know a lot about like the nervous system stuff and how your body was really on edge because I felt the same way. And I think I've spent my whole life, as you had mentioned as well, in periods of time where I was always on edge and I didn't know how to come down from that state. And like you said, I also didn't know any of that. I knew that there was meditations and there was things you could do to like calm yourself, but I didn't know there was different states of being. I didn't know that you could make your, not necessarily make it worse, but like when you're in that state, it does cause chronic pain. I never thought that that would happen. I always thought that it was just medical, like things that the doctor could just give you a medicine and just help you get better. And I also have vulvodynia, and I was actually put on estrogen cream, but it didn't help me. And I was also put on lidocaine. So I think the nervous system stuff has helped me a lot, but I still do struggle a bit in the morning with the burning. So that's something that I've been trying to keep working on because the urgency and frequency, I still struggle with it, but it's gone down significantly. I'm like you are now. I'm not as like when I go out places, I still have to use the bathroom, but that's not my first thought. It's like you just start to slowly realize like, oh, I can go do these things, have a good time, and still use the bathroom, and it's not like the only thing on your mind. So like I feel like I've gotten better with that, but I still need to keep working on the burning piece of it because that's like the urgency is hard too, but I feel like the burning is really hard for me at times because when I first started all of this, I was up like every hour with the burning. I was either in the bathtub or on the toilet. I didn't go anywhere, and now even though I still have symptoms, I if I'm up in the morning, I do breathing. I don't panic at first. I am able to like either go walk around a little bit and then go back to sleep, or I can kind of just use an ice pack or a heating pad and then breathe and then I can go to sleep. Versus before, I would just be on my phone for hours panicking, like you mentioned earlier, looking up stuff online, hoping that something would just magically help. And the only thing that ever really stuck out to me was Callie and just all of that. So like it's amazing to see how we both have come so far, and I'm so excited to see like where we'll be even in another year, and I'm really hopeful that my burning will keep subsiding because I don't deal with it all the time anymore. It's not every day. It's it's a significant thing, but I feel like I've just made so much progress. Um but yes, so I was gonna ask you with the nervous system stuff. I know there's like a variety of things that you can do. Could you kind of just like explain your routine if you have one, and like what do you do in the morning? What are some things that have helped you as far as like the techniques and stuff?
So, for me, it was kind of cleaning up some bad habits. Um, I I'm retired now, but I worked for many, many years in a very stressful job that I would wake up first thing in the morning and look at my phone right away. I'm very grateful now. I don't have to do that. I mean, some people they don't have a choice. If they have that kind of a job, they have to do that. But I have found that limiting the phone, limiting social media. I don't look at my phone for an hour after I get up. I also don't look at my phone after 8 or 8:30 at night before I go to bed. I try to limit it during the day as well. Um, there's an energy to your phone. It's funny because I watch people walk in to yoga classes with their phone, which is not something that I do in my practice. So I want to leave that. I don't want to become a slave to that energy. That energy of the phone is really to serve me. I'm not serving it. So that's one thing is with the phone. The other thing that I do meditation. Um, I don't, I do it a lot of days. I don't do it every day. Periodically throughout the day, if I find that my shoulders are up or my jaw is clenched, that's a clear sign that there's pelvic floor tension going on. And so I will do a few deep breaths, and the breaths are really deep, like expanding your rib cage and breathing into your back. So you're getting it out of the top of your chest. And that to me signals my body to just come down, come down a level. Um, and I've done all the things, you know, I've done the journal speak, which I love, Nicole Sachs, journal speak. And I think you and I were kind of introduced to that maybe at about the same time. So and I've done periods of it. I have not done the full 28 days, but I've gotten up to maybe 20 days and really, really noticed a difference with that. Um, and that's really just about, you know, having all your thoughts come out, you know, all your fears and everything come out, all the parts of you work through it and know that it's a safe place and that it's not going to kill you and that you can, you know, look at it and then you do your meditation and that has helped a tremendous amount.
Okay, so as far as journals speak, do you do like I know when we were reading the book, it talks about doing like the list of things that were the past, I think it's the past, the present, and the personality. Did you find anything during your journaling that you were like, "Oh, I didn't realize that that was something that was bothering me," or like did you find or discover like feelings that maybe you had repressed or that you weren't able to like think about until you wrote it down? Because I found when I did my journal speak, there was some things I didn't even know still bothered me from when I was like a child. So I was just curious to see.
Yeah, for sure. You know, Landy and I spoke about this before coming on the recording. I grew up in a home with alcoholism. Um, my mother um, was the drinker for pretty much through my teenage years. And so I was just focused during those years, even before then. I was the kid who stayed below the radar. I was really good at it. You know, I knew what was going on and knew there was a lot of chaos in my house, a lot of fighting. Um, and I just knew how to stay away from it, but it still was there, you know. And, you know, people who are ill, and my mother had an illness, they try to bring the whole family into it as much as they can, into that vortex. Um, so doing the journal speak really got me in touch with that frightened kid, you know, who was still scared of certain things. And for sure, um, you know, not, so growing up in a home with alcoholism as well, I felt that I needed to control my situation, my life. So a lot of emphasis, and that's a survival skill um, that would come to the forefront whenever I was challenged with something. But the truth is, you know, through the journal speak, I learned that I don't. It's different now. I'm an adult. I'm the adult. I'm not the kid. And the kid is still there, and that's okay. And it's okay that the kid is afraid, but I needed to reassure that child in me that um, that there's that I'm the adult now.
That's really nice because it's eye-opening, I think, when you do realize that you need to let your inner child out, let them speak, let them heal, and just the whole process of going back in time and like you said, kind of seeing like what what things were you doing and what trauma like cause for you versus like, I don't know, like a healthy type of boundary. I feel like for me, when I've been doing journal speak, I didn't realize how much I was a people pleaser, a perfectionist, and how I use that as a defense mechanism. And when I was a child, I was a very quiet kid, and I was always scared to say anything to anybody. I had things happen to me that obviously weren't okay, but I thought that that was okay. I thought I had to put up with it because they were family. Because in a lot of people's family lives, unfortunately, we're taught they're related to you, so you have to put up with everything. And like, it's good to respect people. It's good to no, like you need to give love, but it's also good to set boundaries and say no and not accept behavior from anybody, even if it is family. And that's hard when it's your parents or your siblings or any family member, or even sometimes a friend or a spouse, somebody that you thought you could trust. And I always thought that my parents were right about everything because when you're a kid, you idolize your parents and you want to be just like them and you soak in all of the things that they're teaching you and you don't realize as you get older, oh, this wasn't healthy. So I need to like switch that and change that. Now, you mentioned you have kids. Was there things that you did like differently that you looked back and were like, oh, because I know you talked about some of the struggles that your parents had and everything.
So I want to say that as a teenager, I I babysat for a couple that they were both health teachers, and the husband was doing an alcoholism counseling training course, and so I was very close with them, and he would take me to an Alateen meeting when he would did his training. It was in the same facility. So I got the benefit of that from the time I was 13 until I was 17. And that was really life changing for me. So to speak to what you were saying, until I started with the Alateen meeting, I really thought, that's how people live is with the tumult and the chaos and the, you know, um, all of that. So I really learned through Al-Anon that that's not the case and that it's my future is up to me. So to go back to my kids, I I was in a different mindset by the time I had children. I left my parents when I was 17.
Okay.
So I never went back to that house. So I've been on my own since then because I knew that that wasn't what I wanted in my life. So look, it was a different time then. I think it's much harder economically for people to kind of get away from that now, for young people to get away from that. But for me, that was the beginning of creating the life that I wanted to live.
I
So
think that's great that you were able to start your own life and kind of get away from all the unhealthy stuff and build a new life for yourself. And I agree with you. I do think it's a very different time. I don't think I moved out of my dad's house until I was like 22 when I got married, and I can't tell you how weird it was for me because I was so close with my parents regardless of everything that happened. So when I actually moved out and I started my own life, it was a little scary for me. I will say I was a little bit more dependent because of the dynamic that I had and the unhealthy parts of it. And so I really had to like grow up a lot, and I think it was good for me. But I remember the first night I left my home and I was crying and I was laying in bed in our new house and we didn't have any electricity because the house we bought, the Amish people lived in it. So he had to put like all new wiring in. So like the first week we had a generator and we were going over to his in-laws because luckily they're wonderful and showered there and everything. So I was a mess. And I remember my husband going, "It's gonna be okay. This is your first time, basically alone, other than my wonderful spouse." And he's like, "It's gonna take time for you to build that independent life and to know what it's like outside." And I know it's already hard for some people like me to leave, the parents. I know that can be like a normal separation thing, but it was even harder for me because I grew up believing all these things, and then as I started to get older, I did realize like, oh, this isn't healthy. But as soon as I left my home, I was like, what do I do now? Like, I had some skills, but it took me a while to feel secure in myself and to feel good about my choices because I used to hold so much guilt. And I was always so disappointed in myself because I thought I was doing something wrong because I grew up in a religious home. And I've always had a faith and a belief in something. I just always felt like it had to be the way my family taught me. And I think that it's great to have your own viewpoints and your own belief system, but I believed I had to like honestly have this perfect life in order to be a good person to fulfill what I believed in my religion. And I realize now that that was toxic because that did teach me, like I mentioned, to be a perfectionist and to give these high expectations that that most people aren't going to reach, and if you do, you want to add on more like hurdles. So I think nervous system work has helped me to ask myself, what does my faith look like? What do I believe in? What looks good to me? And what can I do to like accept who I am as a person, but to also be kind to myself because self compassion is the number one thing you need to have when you're doing nervous system work because you're going to have days where it feels like you're not progressing and you're going to have days where you're like, I don't want to do anything. And those are the moments that you have to be like, okay, it's all right. Like, I love myself and this is okay. Have you learned to have more like self compassion during this journey as well?
Yeah, that was one of the things that I found the hardest to do, I think, was to um, allow myself to slow down and allow myself to say, you don't need to be productive the way you think you're productive, which really wasn't very productive. Um, uh, you know, I felt like, to give you a metaphor, was like I was pushing a rock, a big boulder up a hill all the time, all the time. That was in work and then in my home life because I felt like I had to, you know, do all the things, cook the dinner. I worked while having a young family. Do all of that, and be the perfect wife or mother and all of that. So the self compassion really gave me the grace to let me step back and say, you're really good just as you are, and you're even better if you take care of yourself first.
Yeah, that was a really good answer. I think that everyone in the audience can relate because no matter how different you are from somebody else, or maybe your life looks completely different, like from, well, anything, it's really important to not label yourself because you do feel like, oh, if I'm not doing this, then I'm not enough. We value ourselves based on the works. And I think as a society, we've unfortunately learned that we have to do this and this and this to be enough. But I've also, even in my generation, we, I think we kind of were like the somewhat, not the start of social media, but like I didn't have a phone growing up. And then when I turned 18, I got a phone. And honestly, I wish I still didn't ever get one, even though back then I was like, oh, I really want a phone. But like once we got social media, it was always like a comparison. It was like, you posted something and someone's like, "Oh, well, I don't like the way you do that," or "You need to do it this way." And I also remember like in my early 20s, and I'm 28 now for context for anyone that, might not have heard that. I was very unstable and I would post like very like sad things. I would post like I don't want to be here anymore and like I was just, but that was my only outlet. That's the only way I knew how to express myself. And I really wish that I could just hug that person. And I mean I can because that's the point of journal speak and all of this. The whole point is to heal all those inner parts, but for a long time I hated that side of myself. I was embarrassed. People would bring it up even till this day, and I would just feel shame and be like, I don't want to talk about that. But then as I evolved through all this, I realized, why should I be ashamed of that person? That person wasn't trying to hurt anybody. That person wasn't trying to be annoying. They were just asking for help, and maybe it wasn't in the right way, but
But they were also, you were doing the very best that you could with the information that you had at that moment in time. And that says a lot because you've grown so much since then. So, who's ever out there and is struggling with this, just know that you're in the right place, and that we're all doing the very best that we can.
Yes, and I also want to mention too, if anyone's suicidal or they're struggling to even know if they're going to make it through the day, please seek help. I know it seems like hopeless and it feels like things aren't going to get better, but you know, there's more people that feel that way than you realize, and maybe not everybody talks about it because it's hard to open up. But please know that it is good to seek help, and you can always reach out to me, to Faith, to any of the people that I've had on the podcast. If you ever need any of us, like, you can reach out, because I know what it's like to feel isolated and alone and be afraid to open up about mental health and everything. It doesn't have to just be a chronic condition. It could be a hardship, whatever you're going through. Please know that you matter and you are important on this earth, and it wouldn't be the same without you, and that things will get better. Even if it sounds cliche, it does.
And the situations, I know if somebody's in that headspace, know that the situations that we're being faced with are temporary, and things change, and that no one would want you to do something permanent to address a temporary situation.
Very well said. Yes. Um, I really do hope that anyone that's listening really just doesn't give up. Like, don't give up. Keep pushing through, keep trying, and don't be ashamed. Like, don't feel bad for having these issues. We all have something. We all have something we're going through. We carry baggage, and it's not an easy thing. Mental health is hard, and there's so many dark things out there, and it's hard sometimes to be positive. And I want to also mention too, you don't always have to be happy or like always smiling for this stuff to work. The nervous system stuff I used to think was going to be like I said, like taking a pill, like it was just going to magically make me feel better all the time. But I realized it's not about always being happy. It's about being open with yourself and really looking inside and seeing what's going on, but not judging yourself, not bringing yourself down. You're still going to have hard days. You're still going to have hard moments, but um it's okay. It's okay to have these things.
Well, one of the things, and I don't know where I got it from, I'm sure a podcast or something, was before I go to bed at night, I I have a little wind down routine. I may do a self-compassion meditation, but maybe not, but it is a wind down routine. I look at myself in the mirror, and I know we've spoken about this, Landy, and I really say I love myself. And there's one other thing that I do, and it's just to tell myself that the day is complete. Today is completed. And that it's kind of like, closing down your desk when you want to leave work, which, is a good thing to do as well if you're working, to have a ritual where you close things down. And that also helps my nervous system.
I like that. I might have to use that because I usually like my night routine's been a little bit up and down. I've been still trying to work on cutting, screen time and trying not to beat myself up. And I think I'm really addicted to my phone, and it is bad. So I've definitely made progress though, but I think I'm gonna try that myself. So anyone out there, please know I'm still struggling and it's okay. And like Faith said, you'll find what works for you. But I do think that is good to build those self-love skills. Remind yourself that you are loved and valued and that you matter and you made it through another day. That's an accomplishment. Getting out of bed is an accomplishment. And maybe, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm thinking it's also a way to tell your brain that's kind of running in the background all the time to that today's complete. You can't do anything more today. The day is over and everything is okay. And you don't need to think about your to-do list. Now is not the time to beat yourself up about something that you know, maybe didn't do the way that you wanted to. Um, to kind of just give yourself that love, like, it's just today's done.
Yep, that's a good point. And I also like to mention too, sometimes I'll look in the mirror and I'll say, I choose to be kind to myself today. Or I'll even do that in the morning because I'm not a morning person and I struggle to get out of bed. I was exhausted today because I'm watching my friend's dog and he's wonderful, but it's an adjustment for him. So I was up a lot last night. So the whole day I've been like, oh, but even with that, I just keep reminding myself it's okay to not do 10 things. It's all right to lay down and just listen to a nice meditation. It's okay to give yourself a hug and say, I'm proud of you for taking care of yourself. Put yourself first. I know that's hard sometimes. It's hard for me, but don't be afraid to just rest. That's an accomplishment in itself, too. So, in closing, I want to say thank you again for coming on the podcast and for sharing like your story and how the program helped you. I just want to say that you have inspired me, and I'm so grateful we got to know each other. And I know this is going to help a lot of people. Is there anything that you would like to add before we pop off? And yeah.
Um, yes. I want to tell the viewers, and wherever you are in your journey, with your health, wherever you are in the cycle for women, which is hormonally unbelievable when you think we, go through puberty and we have this surge in hormones, and then you're in these childbearing age, and then you go into a perimenopausal stage, and now I'm at the end of all of that, is that women's health was neglected for the
Mm-hmm.
last 20 years. And there's some great doctors now, Dr. Rachel Rubin, Dr. Kelly Casperson, Dr. Mary Claire Haver, who are on the forefront of doing research around women's health, women's sexual health, women's hormonal health. And it's really, really important for all your viewers, whatever age they are, to pay attention to this space. My generation missed it. We had flawed studies that our hormonal health was based on. But what's coming up for the younger women is really important, and to just be aware of it, and be aware of, when you are maybe going through changes, or you think there's something going on, to not dismiss it. Don't let a doctor dismiss it either. There's a program that will be on PBS this Thursday night at my area, which is Channel 21, WLIW. It's called The M Factor 2. It's a documentary about perimenopause and all the changes that go on in your body, um, around hormones. And, so I'm on a mission to spread that word right now, because women's health is really, really important.
Thank you, Faith. That's a really good point, and I really like that you shared all the sources, the resources. I do think it is important to keep updated with all of that, and it is very good to advocate for yourself, especially as women. And like you mentioned, do not take no for an answer. If you feel like something is going on, don't let that doctor tell you that there's nothing wrong because you never know. You know your body more than anyone does, and especially as women, we go through a lot in general, and I truly hope that anyone listening takes what we've said and just knows that they have a voice and you do matter, and you are not crazy for feeling like there's something going on. So don't give up and definitely check out all of those things. But yeah, once again, Faith, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your wisdom and amazing things. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in the future and hearing all the amazing updates and all of that.
Thank you, Landy. Thanks for giving me a platform to express that to other women. I think you and I are on the same page. And the reason why we do this, we were talking about like having a mission You know, we're both in our spaceships and we're going to on our space journey is to really prevent other women from having to suffer.
Exactly. Yep, we know how that feels. It's not a good feeling, and we want to make a difference. And I truly hope that everyone listening knows that they can make a difference too, and things will look up. Well, thank you everyone for popping on the episode. As I always say, please follow, like, comment, share, and don't be afraid to send me any messages if you need support. And I always like to mention if you have anything you want us to talk about, please let me know. And yeah, so I will see you soon, Faith. Bye.
Hi, Landy. Thank you.
Yep.